Sitting in my oncologist's office, I watched as my wife stepped out to take a call, forgetting her phone. A notification from my own brother lit up the screen. No more waiting. Once he's gone, the plan goes into motion. The kids already know how to back us up. My blood ran cold, but I showed no reaction. Instead of confronting them, I played the long game, and when they thought they had won, they discovered too late that I had already taken everything. I never thought I'd be sharing my story here, but recent events have shaken my world to its core, and I need to get this off my chest. I'm a 45-year-old accountant from Chicago. My wife, Sarah, and I have been together for 20 years. We have 2 kids, Michael, who's 18, and Jessica, 16. We've had our ups and downs, but I always believed we were solid. A few months ago, I started feeling off. Fatigue, stomach pains, just not myself. Sarah noticed too and urged me to see a doctor. After some tests, I was referred to an oncologist at the University of Chicago Medicine Comprehensive Cancer Center. Site turn 0 search 11. The day of the appointment, Sarah came with me. We sat in the waiting room, the sterile smell making me uneasy. Dr. Reynolds, a seasoned oncologist, called us in. He didn't mince words. "Daniel, the tests confirm you have stage 4 pancreatic cancer," he said. "The prognosis isn't favorable. We can discuss treatment options, but I want to be honest about the challenges ahead." Hearing those words felt like a punch to the gut. Sarah gasped, tears streaming down her face. She stood up abruptly. "I need a moment," she whispered and walked out, leaving her phone on the chair beside me. As I sat there, trying to process the news, her phone buzzed. I glanced down and saw a message preview. "No more waiting. Once he's gone, the plan goes into motion. The kids already know how to back us up." The sender? My brother Mark. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. My own brother? My wife? And my kids were in on it? I didn't say anything when Sarah returned. I couldn't. I was numb. Over the next few days, I started noticing things I hadn't before. Sarah was on her phone constantly, always stepping out to take calls. Mark started dropping by unannounced, and the kids were acting distant. One evening, I overheard a hushed conversation between Sarah and Mark in the kitchen. "We need to be careful," Sarah said. "He can't suspect anything." "I know," Mark replied. "But once he's gone, everything will fall into place." I felt sick. They were waiting for me to die to execute some plan? And my kids were part of it? I decided to play along, to gather as much information as I could. I started documenting everything, their conversations, their behaviors, even financial records. I also reached out to a lawyer to update my will and set up trusts for my kids. I wanted to ensure that Sarah and Mark wouldn't get a dime. One day, I left my phone recording in the living room and went for a walk. When I played back the recording, I heard them discussing selling the house and splitting the money. That was the last straw. I confronted Sarah that night. I played the recording and showed her the text messages I'd seen. She broke down, admitting to the affair and the plan to take everything once I was gone. She claimed it was Mark's idea, that he convinced her it was for the best. I didn't buy it. I filed for divorce the next day. With the evidence I'd gathered, the court ruled in my favor. Sarah and Mark were left with nothing. As for my kids, we've started family therapy. It's a long road, but I'm hopeful we can rebuild our relationship. I'm still battling cancer, but now I know I'm not fighting just for my health, but for my dignity and peace of mind. After the divorce papers were filed, things didn't quiet down. If anything, they got worse. Sarah moved in with Mark. I expected them to disappear and start their new life together, but instead they dug in hard. Within a week of the court filing, I started getting letters from her lawyer. She was contesting the updated will. Claimed I made the changes under mental duress due to the diagnosis. Said I wasn't in my right mind when I changed everything. That stung. She knew exactly how sharp I still was. But she was banking on the cancer making me look weak and confused. At the same time, weird things started happening. My car tires got slashed one night. No sign of forced entry. I didn't have cameras installed at the time, but I fixed that real quick. The next week, I found a dead bird nailed to my garage door. I didn't call the cops. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew how this game was going to be played. There would be no prints, no evidence, nothing they could use to connect it back to her or Mark. And that's how they wanted it. The hardest part, though, was the kids. Michael and Jessica were still cold with me. They didn't understand everything that happened. Sarah had told them a very different story, said I was paranoid and trying to punish her for moving on. That I was angry about the affair and trying to control them through money. Michael barely looked me in the eye. Jessica stopped texting back altogether. I wasn't going to lose them too. So I started digging. Quietly. I looked into Mark's background, pulled financial records, property details, even spoke to an old coworker of his. What I found was shocking. Mark was drowning in debt. Gambling mostly. He owed over $200,000 to some nasty people. Lost his job months ago but never told anyone. He had been using Sarah not just for emotional comfort, but for financial survival. I'm guessing he saw my illness as a golden window to clean up his life. I took this info to my lawyer, who quietly began preparing documentation for court. But I wasn't ready to strike yet. I needed something bigger. Then one day, I got a call from Jessica. It was short, shaky. "Dad, can we talk?" "Not at the house. We met at a park." She looked scared. "I think Uncle Mark is hurting Mom," she whispered. "He gets really angry when she talks about leaving. He told me not to tell you. But I think he's dangerous." My stomach dropped. I asked if she'd seen anything. She nodded. Said she heard shouting through the walls, things breaking. Sarah had bruises but always brushed it off. I didn't react right away. I just held her and said, "Thank you for telling me." That night, I called a private investigator and had them tail Mark. Within 2 weeks, I had photos. Proof of abuse. Mark roughing up Sarah in a parking lot outside a Walgreens in Naperville. Another picture of him screaming at her in the front seat of her car while she was crying. I printed everything out and handed it to my lawyer. "Time to move," I told him. But I wasn't ready to take it public yet. Not until the kids were fully out of that house. Not until they saw the truth with their own eyes. So I planned something riskier. I invited Michael and Jessica over under the pretense of updating them about my treatment. I told them how the chemo was progressing, how the doctors were cautiously optimistic. Then I told them I had something I needed them to see. I didn't show them the photos right away. Instead, I played a recording, a conversation between Mark and a loan shark he thought no one would ever hear. My PI had bugged his car. "I'll get it. He's got life insurance. Once he's gone, we're set," Mark said. Michael's face went white. Then I showed the pictures. Jessica started crying. Michael just got up and walked outside. He didn't say a word, just stood by the tree in our front yard for 10 minutes, staring at nothing. When he came back in, he only said one thing. "What do we do now?" That was the turning point. But it wasn't over. Not even close. Because Mark knew I was getting close to something. And he wasn't going to go down without a fight. The day after Michael saw the photos, Sarah called me. Not a text. Not an email. A real call. That alone told me something was seriously wrong. Her voice was shaky. "He knows, Daniel. He knows you showed them. He found the bug in his car." I didn't say anything. Just listened. "He's losing it," she said, barely whispering. "He thinks you're trying to ruin his life. He said if you don't stop, he'll..." She cut herself off, then finally said, "He said he'll make you stop." That night I barely slept. The next morning, I got an alert on my phone from the new security system. Motion detected in the backyard at 2:47 a.m. When I checked the footage, I saw a figure, hoodie pulled up, walking the perimeter of my yard. He stood still under my bedroom window for 5 straight minutes, then left. No forced entry. No vandalism. Just watching. I knew it was him. I called the police and gave them everything, the footage, the PI's report, even the audio recording. They opened an investigation, but Mark had covered his tracks too well. They couldn't press charges yet. That didn't stop me. I took the next step. I went to Sarah's place while Mark was at work. She didn't want me there at first, afraid he'd come back, but I told her we had to act now. I brought copies of all the files and photos. We sat down with her laptop and started documenting her side of the story, emails, texts, even an old journal entry where she wrote about Mark manipulating her during my first hospital stay. While she was scanning a folder, I saw something odd in her shared files. A PDF labeled, Estate Transition Plan, 2024. I opened it. It wasn't a legal document. It was a draft of a timeline. Bullet points. Dates. Events. Daniel's diagnosis confirmed. Life insurance policy verified. Talk to kids about future planning. Meet with financial advisor, Mark to pretend to be cousin. Prepare sale of lake house. It went on. It detailed the steps they had laid out together, at least until she started backing out. I realized she hadn't just been caught up in an affair. She had actively helped plan my exit. She just hadn't had the stomach to finish it once I got sicker. She saw the file too and went pale. I forgot this even existed. She whispered. It was his idea, but I helped. She broke down. I didn't comfort her. I took a screenshot, emailed it to myself, then copied the file to a flash drive. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. That evening, Michael came back from a late shift at his part-time job and handed me a folded piece of paper. This was in my locker, he said. It was a printed email. Sent from a burner address. The subject line, Still think he's your hero? Attached was a photo. It was of me. In a car. With another woman. Smiling. It was from years ago. I recognized the woman. Her name was Alyssa. She worked in the HR department of the accounting firm I used to consult for in Milwaukee. We'd gone to dinner a few times after Sarah and I had a rough patch. But it never turned into anything. We kissed once. I felt awful and ended it before it went anywhere. But Mark had the photo. He must have followed me. Or maybe he found it some other way. Michael looked confused. Is this real? I nodded. Yeah. It is. It was a long time ago. Before everything. I ended it before it got serious. Jessica overheard and ran upstairs. Slammed her door. So now I wasn't just the betrayed husband. I was also the hypocrite. Mark must have known that dropping that photo would cause chaos. And it did. For the next few days, the kids barely spoke to me again. But here's the difference. I didn't lie. I showed them everything. My emails. The messages. The timeline. I told them the whole story, including the part where I screwed up. Then I said, I never once wished your mother harm. I never once wanted anything from this except to protect you. And I still do. They believed me. Slowly, painfully, they started to see who had been manipulating this entire mess from the beginning. Mark. That's when I made the next move. I met with Sarah again and asked her to help bring him down. Legally. She was scared. I could see it in her eyes. But I also saw guilt. Real guilt. And fear for the kids. She agreed. She started wearing a wire. And that's where things are now. We're setting the trap. Carefully. Quietly. And when he falls for it, because he will, we'll be ready. But I know he's dangerous. I know he's watching. I just hope we're not too late. It was the night of Sarah's 43rd birthday, and that's when it all came to a head. We didn't throw her a party. Nobody felt like pretending anymore. The kids agreed to come over for dinner, just the 4 of us, under one roof, one last time. Sarah said she needed the chance to speak to them, to clear her side, and I said okay, but only if she came clean. The plan was already in place. She was wired. Everything was recording. What none of us planned for was Mark showing up. He wasn't supposed to be there. But I guess when manipulators feel control slipping, they get reckless. He burst in through the front door like he still belonged there, like this wasn't my house, like he hadn't plotted to take it. "Why is she even here?" he said, glaring at Sarah. "I told you to stay away from him." Michael stood up. "You don't get to tell her anything." Mark smirked. "Look at you. Playing the good son now? Your dad's a liar. You really think he's a saint? You know what I found in his emails?" I stood calm. "Go ahead, Mark. Tell them. Your dad cheated. Before any of this. Before the cancer. Before me and your mom. He's not some hero. He's just a selfish prick who didn't get caught until now." Jessica looked from him to me, her hands clenched in her lap. "He told us. He already told us everything." That stopped Mark for a second. His eyes narrowed. Then Sarah spoke. "He's right about one thing," she said, voice shaking. "Your dad did mess up. And so did I. But what we did, it doesn't compare to what Mark's been planning." Mark turned on her, voice rising. "You're joking." She didn't flinch. "You used me. You used the kids. You were going to let him die and cash out like it meant nothing. I was stupid, and scared, and angry. But I'm not scared anymore." That's when Mark lost it. He lunged toward her, shouting, and that's when I stepped in. Between them. "Don't," I said, voice low. He shoved me back. Not hard, but enough. Enough for Michael to grab him and push him toward the door. "You're done," Michael growled. "You're not welcome here. You never were." Mark laughed. This unhinged, ugly sound. "You think you can just erase me? I was part of this family before you even knew what was going on." Then the doorbell rang. 2 plainclothes officers. My lawyer had already handed the audio files to the DA's office. They'd been waiting for the right moment. "We need to speak to Mark Crawford," one of them said, stepping inside. "You're under investigation for conspiracy to commit fraud, extortion, and stalking." The look on his face, pure disbelief. Like the world had flipped upside down, and no one gave him the memo. He didn't resist. Just stared at me as they cuffed him. "You think this is over?" "It's not over." I didn't say anything back. Just stood there, watching him disappear. The door closed. Silence followed. A heavy one. Jessica started crying. Not sobbing. Just quiet tears. Michael sat down hard, his hands over his face. Sarah sat on the floor. Just sat there. Like everything had drained out of her. Nobody said anything for a while. The aftermath was a slow burn. Sarah moved out of Mark's apartment, stayed with her sister for a bit. She texted the kids often. Sometimes they replied. Sometimes they didn't. Michael came around quicker. He started helping me around the house again, asked about my treatment, even drove me to chemo once when I was too tired to make it myself. Jessica, it's still hard. She talks to me, but there's distance. I don't blame her. Everyone she trusted let her down in some way. Sarah apologized again, in person. She said she wasn't looking for forgiveness, just understanding. I told her I'm not sure I can give either. Not yet. She nodded. Said she'd wait as long as it took. We finalized the divorce a few weeks later. Quietly. No drama. Just signatures. Mark's case is still ongoing. He made bail, of course. But the evidence is damning. And Sarah's statement sealed a lot of it. As for me, I'm alive. The treatments are working better than expected. The tumor's smaller. The doctors are hopeful. So am I. But not in the same way I used to be. It's a quieter kind of hope now. One that doesn't expect everything to be okay. One that just wants peace. Looking back, I still can't believe how far it all went. The lies, the planning, the betrayal from the people I trusted the most. But I also saw the truth. About myself. About them. About how fragile everything can be, and how strong you have to be to keep going anyway. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: sometimes survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about choosing to live, even after everything falls apart.